What is up, guys? So today we're going to talk about what's been happening on YouTube. You all know I like a bit of dark side content. I love watching all these different people and what they've been up to. And I've noticed the JDP's just done an interview with Brett May. And so yeah, that's what I'm going to talk about today. Now, I don't watch the dark side religiously, but I do like if somebody has got something interesting going on, then I'll watch it. Like the bloated sheriff. I don't usually watch him because it's gross, isn't he? It grosses me out. He comes on burping and farting and sniffing. Like, I've been up all night. I'm not well. I'm not surprised. If you sit around all day doing that, eating junk food, eating Greggs and Big Macs and not drinking any water or getting any exercise, then this is the result. You get a bloated sheriff burping and farting and coughing. He's like a out-of-shape deck of Heggy. So I don't usually watch him, but when he was doing the whole Scotty G thing, it was interesting, I was invested because that's where my true passion lies with addiction and recovery, and I try to motivate people and inspire people by way of example. So that's where the true passion lies. But what we got to see with Scotty G was the power of addiction before our very eyes. It's like, it's not as easy as just going and picking someone up off the street and throwing him in a shed and saying, oh, there you go, you can get clean now. If they're not ready, they're not going to do it. And we saw that unfold before us. And Scotty had no interest in getting clean. He would just sit there off his head like, meh. And the only time he made any movements, I mean, you never heard him talk about what he's going to do, how he's going to be successful, how he's going to get a job, how he's going to do this. He didn't say, he just sat there gouching, and the only time he actually moved was when someone mentioned PayPal or GoFundMe. Then his ear would prick up and he'd come alive for a couple seconds because he's a professional beggar. And it was great to see before our very eyes the power of addiction. So it was interesting. And I've heard Scotty's not in a good place now. It might be homeless, I don't know. I think it was Ratpole what said he was homeless. Or it might have been Brian Cockrell, so it's probably true. But that's why I was watching the bloated sheriff with the whole Scotty G thing. But I don't watch him outside of that. And I was looking on YouTube yesterday and I saw JDP has done an interview with Brett May, and I thought, well, JDP is the most boring man on YouTube. So, he's doing an interview with Brett May, who's like, he's the most controversial, he's the loudest, he's the most entertaining, he's like a one-man band. He's chaos. So I thought, well, there's no way this can be boring. So I put it on, and spoiler alert, it was boring. I don't know, how do you make someone like Brett May, the man of the hour, the most entertaining man on YouTube, how do you do a boring podcast with him? But he managed it, and the thing with Brett is he has, for the last 2 months, he's been banging on about Danny Christie, fighting Danny Christie this, Danny Christie that, and we all saw what happened. Danny Christie came down to Doncaster, we was talking behind the scenes, me and Danny, and we negotiated. I says, look, you can come into Donny, but I'm going to need a few packs of pickled onion Space Raiders, and then I can guarantee a safe entry into Doncaster waters. So anyway, we did a bit of negotiating, and I says, all right, you can come into Donny. So he came to Donny, and he went looking for Brett, and Brett didn't turn up. And I was telling everyone, Brett's the man, Brett's going to do this, he's not scared of Danny, and well, he didn't turn up. And see, Brett's going to have to live with that for the rest of his life. I'm sure it's eating him up, that's a decision he's going to have to live with. But anyway, that's what happened, and Brett's been talking about it online. He's training every day, the fight's in May, the fight's in March, and everyone's kind of fed up with hearing about it. So then JDP does an interview with this guy, and what does he talk about? There's a million things you can talk about. And he talks about Danny Christie fight and training. I was like, mate, that's the last thing we want to hear about. And I don't want to seem like I'm ragging on JDP, because he seems like an alright lad. The trouble with him is he's got this YO mentality, like, it's just, I used to have a mate like it. He was too cool to do out, he was known as a tough guy, and And like, whenever we was drunk and we'd be on the dance floor, like fucking bouncing about, he'd be sat in the corner hugging a pint because he's too cool to get involved. And I feel like that's what JDP is like. And he's got this YO mentality where he seems to be impressed by like people like Brian Cockrell, taxmen and tough guys and bullies and big time drug dealers. I remember I'd made a video in before, and in the comments he was calling me a punter, saying another punter or something. So obviously he's impressed with drug dealers and stuff like that. And it's that YO mentality. Is people like JDP are 10 a penny in any shit prison. Any shit prison yard. There's 50 JDPs on there. And I tell you what it'd be like. He'd be in his cell, you'd go in his cell and he would have like 50 shower gels all over the walls, all over the table and the windowsill. 49 of them would be nearly empty and there'd just be one. He'd have a prison towel up over his cupboard, a prison towel with all piss stains on his thing, on his table. Underneath his bed he'd have probably like 100 packs of prison issue tea bags and cornflakes, a couple milks on the windowsill, you know, flexing like he's a shotter, like he's a big player, because he's fat for prison issue cornflakes. Apparently, I heard a rumor about him that he used to collect the tea packs, because you get a tea pack every day in prison, and apparently he used to collect them all up, and at the end of the week he'd send them out to his missus so he could feed the family and that. But even his prison story was cringe, man. He said, what was it now? He said that he went to prison, he was in prison, and he had a parcel, which means he had smuggled some drugs in. And he said he went into his cell and there was no TV there. So he put word out, I need a TV, I'll give you some drugs. And apparently 3 black dudes came to tax him, they forced his way into his cell, and he says he started whacking them and picked the TV up and smashed it on their head. But he said you didn't have a TV, so... So you're fibbing, aren't you? And that's JDP. He's so boring. And when you're boring and you're not creative, you've got no banter, you just have to make up lies. And another thing I noticed is, what is that weird beard thing he's got going on? What is that? It looks like, is he becoming Amish? Is it like, is he going to whack a turban on? What is that beard? It looks like he's going to start shouting Allahu Akbar every time something good happens. But yeah, I've noticed something with him. He's got this one universal picture what he seems to use in all his videos for the thumbnail. And it's an old picture of him. And he's got some nice sunglasses on. His hair's done nice. He's got a big gold chain. You know, he's looking like Giga Chad. And then he's got his little fist up like that. And it's like this tiny little fucking mincer. It looks like a little new potato or something on the end of his arm. He's got a big old King Edward head and a little new potato fist. I'm like, how are you going to fight anyone with that? They're like a T-Rex arms. And but yeah, he uses that one picture on all his thumbnails, and now apparently he's fighting what's his name, Hedgehog Man. He's fighting Hedgehog Man on the Brett May undercard. Oh, mate. That's about as real as Robert Downey Jr. in Tropic Thunder. It's not going to happen, is it? And Hedgehog Man, and usually if I see someone blow up on the dark side, right, if it's someone like the Sheriff or JDP and they're blowing up and getting big numbers, it'll annoy me a little bit because I think, oh man, you're shit, you don't deserve no viewers. But Video Craig, he's blowing up, and you've got to say he deserves it, man. He's good at YouTube. He's funny, he's creative, he's full of energy, he looks ridiculous. And the whole Brett May thing with the letter, my God, that was genius. And I bet even Brett was like, well, I'm not even mad, mate, because that was so good. And what happened was Brett sent a letter to himself, allegedly. And what they did is Brett's got this letter, someone threatening him, saying, oh, you're coming to my family's house and all this. And he's held the letter up, and the stamp had not been stamped, so that was a bit fishy. And then all the handwriting was in Brett's handwriting. So he got his Video Craig, got his CSI team involved. And somehow they've got this letter what he held up. There was another letter underneath it, and somehow they've highlighted the letter underneath it and seen what he wrote. And it was a letter trying to get someone sacked from work, and it was. I've not seen Brett mention it since, so I don't know what's happening with that. But yeah, Video Craig's supposed to be fighting JDP. Well, we all know it's not going to happen. But Video Craig is good at YouTube. You've got to give him that, whether you like him or not. You've got to respect the hustle. He is good at what he does, especially if he comes after you. I mean, I wouldn't want him coming after me, because he knows how everything works. He knows he can create songs. Oh man. But yeah, apparently he's fighting JDP, which I don't think that'll ever happen. But the whole interview, man, there's a million things you could have asked Brett about with JDP and this Brett May interview, and he asked him about the two things we do not want to hear about. But best believe, if I ever interview Brett, I'll be asking him the interesting questions, you know, what's the toughest prison you've been in, and because we've had similar paths in life, like we're like polar opposites. That's why I think it'd be a good podcast or a good interview if I interviewed Brett, because he's like a big, loud, aggressive dude, and I'm like quiet, reserved, chilled out. We've both navigated the same paths in life, although I was an addict, his was violence, you know, but we both spent like half our lives in prison. So I think it'd be a good video if we did a podcast, and when I would get into his head a bit, you know, and ask him stuff, what's interesting, what we want to know about. But anyway, that's down the line, and yeah, I just wanted to make a little video and talk about JDP. Like I say, note against JDP, and if you are, apparently he's thinking of coming to Doncaster, so hit me up behind the scenes, you know, make sure you bring some bunts and burner. It's probably going to cost you, might even be a box of pickled onion Monster Munch for this one. But yeah, if you want to get into Donny, come see me, bring some Monster Munch, and we'll see what we can figure out. But anyway, that's the video for today. If you like this video, press the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. Nerf de pap.